Well, Spencer Leniu tonight has fronted the NRL Judicary at Rugby League headquarters, and Nine's Emma Lawrence has been there to witness it all unfold behind closed doors. Emma, good evening to you. What's the verdict?
James, it is an 8-match ban for Spencer Leniu, and honestly, it was a fascinating evening here at NRL headquarters. We were inside for about 2.5 hours. Essentially, Leniu's lawyer was arguing that, yes, he did use the word monkey, but it wasn't in a racist way. And he argued that he's been called monkey coconut by his friends and even on the footy field several times, and not once has he been offended. Leniu even said, and I do quote, he thought it was just one brown man sledging another brown man. As for the NRL Council, they were arguing that after 15 years of living in Australia, Spencer Leniu must have known that that was a derogatory term. They even asked Spencer if he'd ever heard of the Adam Goodes saga, but Spencer said he didn't even know who that was. Spencer's lawyers wanted 4 weeks, the NRL wanted 8 weeks, and in the end it was a unanimous decision from the judiciary, an 8-week ban. Now, Spencer showed plenty of remorse, but he was clearly rattled when the verdict was handed down. So instead of speaking, their chief executive, Joe Kelly, said a few words on his behalf.
First, on behalf of Spencer and the Sydney Roosters, we apologise unreservedly to Ezra and his family for the hurt that has been caused, and we extend this apology to the wider Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island community. Our best wishes are with Ezra, and we know that he has great support around him, including at the Brisbane Broncos.
Joe, should he have apologised earlier instead of Thursday? Should he have come out Tuesday and nipped this in the bud? Why did it take so long?
Well, I think until we all got back here to Australia, it was a situation where, as we heard in there, at a point in time, up to a point in time, Spencer wasn't even aware that this was a racial slur. And I think we've worked our way through this. We've convened as soon as we got back to Sydney, and we've got on the front foot. And in that very first meeting we had with Spencer, we said, "How do you want to deal with it?" He said, "I want to go and see Ezra in Brisbane." He initiated, as we said in there. It was his call. So I think we did that as soon as we possibly could.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Joe.
And James, even though we do have a verdict now, I imagine it will continue to dominate headlines for the next few days to come.
As it has for the last 8 and a bit. Thanks so much, Emma. Up to date, as always, on the scene for us there. So the verdict's in, 8 matches, massive blow from a footballing perspective for the Roosters. His new club, Gus. Does the punishment fit the crime, though, from what unfolded in Vegas?
Oh, look, I don't think it's going to undo the hurt. I don't think it's going to solve the issue. I think it is a deterrent, and it's obviously an education and part of the education process. The thing that I'm disappointed in is that this has dragged on far too long. In the initial stages, most people got the impression that he was dismissive of it, and the club was even dismissive of it, and it wasn't until they got back to Australia a few days later that we finally got the apology. That could have come much earlier, which would have softened the situation a little bit. And it allows too many other people then to be commenting for a whole week. I mean, we're 8 days since this happened, commenting for a whole week and this having it in the papers. And that frustrates everyone within the game, because this is essentially a really inclusive game. Our players for years and years have been educated on the multicultural nature of our game, about the different heritages that we have, about all the people that we have in our game. It was just disappointing that it's dragged on so long. An incident like this, Spencer claims that he doesn't know that that was a derogatory term. Well, that's an uneducated thing to be saying, so he's obviously got his education tonight. As for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 weeks, I don't think that matters. I don't think it solves the hurt that's been caused to Ezra and those who support Ezra, but it's a part of the education process again, and I would have liked to have all this to have been nipped in the bud a hell of a lot earlier. I think if he'd have come out straight away, owned it, apologised on the day, and Roosters got on the front foot with it, I don't think this would have dragged on as long as it did.
Gus, you mentioned the education, but I genuinely believe what Spencer was saying.
100%.
But I believe that he didn't know.
Yeah.
The fact that I think he was asked about the Adam Goodes situation, he didn't know.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way, it's a failure to educate him in those sorts of things. I mean, you mentioned education. Maybe in his upbringing, he didn't hear any of that. He didn't know how bad the word was. So I don't think Spencer's lying in that sense. I genuinely believe him. But It's totally unacceptable.
But once informed, and he should have been informed straight away.
And he should have been.
Then he should have taken ownership of that straight away.
Yeah.
Like the way it portrayed after the game was, he was quite dismissive of it.
I spoke to him straight after the game, and
There were allegations that they actually carried on for the next 24 hours at the hotel.
Well, there was definitely some sort of interaction.
And there was no apology until Wednesday.
Yep.
When finally the Roosters came out with a statement. Well, that's too long.
Yep.
And that just allows all the other commentary.
That's maybe why he's got 8.
It allows the media to go and speak to other people and them have their comments, and then it portrays our game in a poor light over this one incident.
Yep.
You know, because when our games, I live in clubland. I've lived in it for 50 years. I know what it's like. You know, it is inclusive, and we're very respectful of all the multicultural people that are in our game and the Indigenous people that are in our game. Every now and then you get a little. I mean, he's Samoan himself. You know, I watch the Pacific Island boys and how they talk to each other and how they treat each other, you know.
Gal, your take? I know you obviously were frustrated, like Gus, with the timing and how long it has taken to...
I've got the same opinion as Gus about it. I mean, hopefully Ezra's okay. Obviously, I think we've sort of forgotten about him a little bit. Yep. With Spencer Leniu sort of solely the past week. It's gone on way too long. It's glad it's over, but it will create headlines for another couple of days. I suppose what I find interesting about it is that the prosecution asked for 8 weeks and they got 8 weeks. I thought they may have taken into consideration the fact that he put his hand up and admitted guilt. Normally when you admit guilt with the NRL, you do get some sort of reduction. So I thought he may have got 5 to 6 weeks, but particularly with there's been a case a couple of years ago, a homophobic slur was made on the field. There was no complaint at the time, but it was picked up on a microphone. That play got 4 weeks. That's obviously what Lenu's counsel asked for.
Does that 8 weeks, does that encapture the next Roosters-Broncos match?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure they play each other in 8 weeks' time, so he'll miss that game. He'll be back the week after that. So, look, it's how do you argue with it? How do you argue with the case of this? You can't argue with it. I agree with what Gus said. It's taken too long. It's done now, and you know, next couple of days we'll hear about it more, but then we'll just move on.
Some unusual moments in the
I'd say it's an isolated incident. It is an isolated incident.
Well, you'd hope so.
Look, I do. I'm with Gus. I have heard Polynesian people and Indigenous people talk to each other differently than what say white people can. But that's part of what they do with their culture, I suppose. But this is an isolated incident and does not happen often.
And he was at one stage called Spencer Luai, I think, by the NRL Council tonight.
I guess everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah, along there as well. So that's up there with Benji.
Not just the players.
It's up there with Benji Barber.
Not just the
don't
players.
worry. As someone that works in live TV, I definitely hear you on that.